It was the early 70s in Wilmington, Delaware, and much like the rest of the nation, urban unrest was at an all time high. America had already seen the assassination of the president and the death of a king. The National Guard had been stationed in Wilmington to quell the unrest of black folks, but it had been a white man who ran down and murdered young Sheila Farrell for picking a peach from a tree branch that hung outside that yard. There was another man, a man by the name of Ross B. Rainey, who had answered God's call to ministry. He was a quiet, reserved, and studious man, and Rainey became the pastor of Delaware's First Church of God in Christ, a charismatic Pentecostal movement started by Reverend C.H. Mason, the son of former slaves and sharecroppers. Mason had attended the Holiness Revival at Azusa Street in San Francisco. He'd gone back to his Baptist church a changed man. His fiery preaching and a demand that Christians become sanctified for God's use resulted in him being kicked out of his church. Mason's dismissal became the beginning of the largest black church denomination in the world. Reverend Ross B. Rainey would hear Mason's clarion call to sanctification while in Coffeyville, Kansas, where he grew up. He attended Crozier Theological Seminary, where another great alumni like Judge Warren Davis, Samuel DeWitt, William Augustus Jones, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. also attended. There, Rainey met his wife, Thelma, or Nan as we called her, who had been admitted with a group of the first women who would be allowed to attend. Rainey and his wife began to serve in Wilmington, Delaware at a time when God needed them most. The inner city was hotter than July, and young people were looking for ways to be proud. And there was a society that saw them as less. When many young blacks were rejected and rejecting what they saw as a white God, Reverend Rainey, Pop as we called him, taught us that we were loved by God, and that if we would acknowledge God in everything we did, God would direct our paths. As a result of his enthusiastic evangelism, Mother Church of God in Christ became a haven to hundreds of black teens in search of something. There, under the direction of Cheryl Smith and Harrison Lamont, the Mother Church of God in Christ Choir, or Harvest Choir, became the pride of Delaware. With a soulful sound and a message of God's good news, the choir managed to be ahead of its time and right on time. At a time when the nation was on fire, our sound was like capturing lightning in a bottle. Reverend Rainey died in 1999, but today, those choir members live all over the world sharing messages of God's love, purpose, and promise, and God's hope. They have become teachers and preachers, scientists and poets. They are musicians, artists, engineers, doctors, and a sociologist. Because they are so scattered, most only come together for funerals, but this time, we're being called to recreate that lightning for the world that is strife and striven with division and hatred. We are being called to shine some hope. We're calling all members of the Mother Church of God in Christ, Harvest Choir. See you soon.